other law enforcement agencies.
Our objectives for this subject are to comprehend the functions and structure of reports, to determine the role of law enforcement organizations, and the organizational structures should be described. We will also determine the memberships, obligations, and functions, and identify and describe some of the functions and powers of law enforcement organizations. The Philippine Coast Guard has the responsibility to uphold, enforce flag and port state control inspections and salvage operations, to comply with any relevant maritime international conventions, treaties, or instruments, as well as national laws for the promotion of safety of life and property at sea within the maritime jurisdiction of the Philippines.
In 1967, the Republic Act 5137, or the Philippine Coast Guard Law, was enacted by Congress, enabling the creation of the PCG as one of the major units of the Navy. However, its military character prevented PCG from receiving capability upgrades from other foreign countries. Also, the Philippine Coast Guard is recognized the third armed uniformed service of the country attached to Philippine Department of Transportation, tasked primarily with enforcing laws within Philippine waters, conducting maritime security operators, safeguarding life of property at sea, and protecting marine environment and resources. Similar to Coast Guard units around the world. In case of a declaration of war, the Coast Guard shall also serve as attached service of the Department of National Defense.
Here we have the PCG strategic objectives. It includes a vision for a secure, safe, and clean maritime environment, a mission to advance maritime safety, protect marine resources, and support national activities. Sector outcome. The sector results include the safer environment, enhanced national development, territorial integrity, government honesty, and reduce incidents, infraction, and marine pollution.
So the acronym PCG stands for Philippine Coast Guard. The Philippine Coast Guard is responsible for safety of the people in the sea, search and rescue, sea services, and many others. We all know their purpose in our country. They protect, give us service whenever we need it. Not just in the sea, but also here in land. Third uniform armed services in this country, the Philippine Coast Guard, and the Philippine Coast Guard is uniform armed forces in this country. So why does they are third? Why not the second or first? It's because the first and second uniform armed services in our country is Armed Forces of the Philippines, which is AFP, and the Philippine National Police, which is PNP. The world class is the Philippine Coast Guard, Guardian of the Sea. They are committed to save lives, ensure the safety of our people, protect our property from other countries, and many other reasons.
Republic Act 9993, or the Coast Guard Law, was enacted in 2009. The PCG was, among others, listed the necessary authority and responsibility to perform preventive measures in ensuring the safety of merchant vessels.
According to RA 9993, I will discuss their powers and functions. First, they enforce rules in complying with all important national laws, international maritime conventions, treaties, or other forms of law. They will inspect all shipping companies and vessels to assess their emergency preparedness to provide aid to ships and people in need within Philippine maritime jurisdiction. They will also conduct research and rescue operations in marine accidents and to look into the causes of all maritime accidents involving fatalities, injuries, and property damage. They will also help with the enforcement issues with ecosystem, dangerous illegal drugs, regulated chemicals, human trafficking, weapons and explosive immigrations, tariffs, and fisheries. This will be performed to attain the objectives of the Philippine Coast Guard Law of 2009. There are 7 groups that make up PCG's organizational structure. First, Headquarters Philippine Coast Guard or HPGC. That enables the PCG's command, control, and policy direction. Next, Functional Commands. They are in charge of developing the PCG's 5 functional areas, which are maritime safety, marine environmental protection, maritime security, maritime and law enforcement, and search and rescue. Coast Guard districts, they are in control of managing support units and operations within their various areas of control in order to implement the FC's policies into implementation. In addition, Administrative Support Commands provides HPCG with administrative assistance in terms of training, expertise, professionalism, cleanliness, and discipline. Moreover, Operational Support Command, they are in charge of providing highly experienced individuals and advanced machinery to support the cities. Support Bases, they provide the various Philippine Coastal Guard units with administrative, logistical mobility, and service support as they carry out their basic responsibilities. And lastly, the Technical and Administrative Support Services and Offices, providing assistance to HPCG, FCs, CGDs, ASCs, OSCs, and SBs in the areas of healthcare, education, information, technical knowledge, the investigation, finance, legal, religious, recruitment, and other services, as well as allocation for connected operations.
Deputy Commandant with a rank of Vice Admiral. The Vice Admiral assists the Admiral in implementing and performing the mandated function and responsibilities of the PCG. The current Vice Admiral for administration of PCG is Coast Guard Vice Admiral Ronnie J. L. Cavani, and the Vice Admiral for operation is Ronaldo Lysor and Pusalan Jr. Next in line is the Chief Coast Guard Staff that has a rank of the Commander. The Commander also assists the Commandant PCG in the matter with regards to the function and activities of the Central Staff. What is the Central Staff? The Central Staff was a rank of a Captain. The Captain main function is to give advice to the Commandant in the conceptualization of proposed plan, policies related to the human resource, intelligence, logistic, international affair, controllership. Next is the Coast Guard Action Center that also carry the rank of Captain. Assist, advise the Commandant through monitoring both administration and operation of PCG unit on land at sea by means of rapid or quick transmission of communication and ensuring that timely and accurate information is sent and received from internal and external person, group, or institution. Next is the Beans of Award Committee. The committee is responsible for all the procurement of activities of PCG and compliance with the current rules of regulation of Department of the Transportation or DOTR. The chairman of Beans of Award Committee is the third ranking officer of the PCG. Next is the Public Affairs Office. The Commander Public Affairs Office with the rank of a Captain assists to provide recommendation to the Commandant pertaining to the PCG Public Information Program with primary goal of furthering enhancing national aims, interests, and policies. Next is the Special Concern Office. Commander Special Concern Office that also carries the rank of Captain provide assistance to the Commandant on any issues related to domestic and international concern that require immediate action. Followed by the Commander of Headquarters Support Group that also carries the rank of Captain, provides support and assistance the Commandant on matters related on administration, maintenance, and preservation of Headquarters PCG, infrastructure, equipment, resources, armory, and transportation unit. Lastly is the Office of First Master Chief PT Officer that support the Commandant on every aspect pertaining to the upkeep of improvement of character, well-being, and discipline of the non-commissioned officer of the PCG.
PCG categories of officers and employees. According to the implementing rule and regulation of the Philippine Coast Guard Law 2009, the PCG consists of the following categories of officers and employees. General Line Officers and Technical Line Officers are two divisions of the PCG Officers Corps. The GLO and TLO will have their own seniority lineal list. General Line Officers, PCG officers who are not TLOs, are known as GLOs. The PCG officers, known as Technical Officers, are chosen due to their technical and specialized training. PCG non-officers enlisted personnel carrying out tasks related to their respective specialization and ratings. PCG non-uniformed personnel are members of PCG or civilian employees who have been appointed and are governed by the laws, rules, and regulations of the civil service. A candidate officer who is awaiting call to active duty and appointment as a PCG officer is awarded the rank of probationary ensign. A student pursuing training in government marine or other service academies, including service academic abroad, in order to become an officer in the PCG service is referred to as a cadet or cadets. PCG officer rank, CG Admiral, the highest rank for an officer in the United States Coast Guard, responsible for overseeing strategic planning and decision-making. CG Vice Admiral, the second highest rank in the Coast Guard, serving as a senior leader and advisor to the Admiral. CG Rear Admiral, a high-ranking officer in the Coast Guard, responsible for commanding large operational units or holding key staff positions. CG Commodore, a senior officer often responsible for a leading of a group of ships or a mobile operational unit. CG Captain, a senior officer responsible for commanding a ship or a major shore-based unit. CG Commander, a mid-ranking officer responsible for managing day-to-day operations and leading smaller units. CG Lieutenant Commander, a junior officer responsible for tactical operations and serving as a key assistant to higher-ranking officers. CG Lieutenant Senior Grade, a junior officer with increased responsibility, often leading small teams or divisions. CG Lieutenant Junior Grade, a junior officer responsible for specific duties and tasks, often working under the supervision of higher-rank officers. CG Ensign, the lowest commissioned officer rank, typically assigned to entry-level positions of rules. CG Probationary Ensign, an ensign who is serving in a probationary period, typically right after their commissioning. CG Cadet or Cadet, a trainee or student at the United States Coast Guard Academy, working towards becoming a commissioned officer in the future. PCG non-officer ranks. CG First Master Chief Petty Officer, the highest enlisted rank in the United States Coast Guard, serving as a senior enlisted advisor to the command. CG MCPO, Master Chief Petty Officer, a higher-ranking enlisted member who provides leadership and expertise to the enlisted force. CG SCPO, Senior Chief Petty Officer, a senior enlisted member who supervises and mentors junior enlisted personnel. CG CPO, Chief Petty Officer, a senior enlisted member responsible for managing and leading small work groups. CG PO1, Petty Chief Officer, First Class, a mid-level enlisted member with technical expertise and leadership responsibilities. CGPO2, Petty Officer Second Class, a skilled enlisted member who may serve as a team leader or supervisor. CGPO3, Petty Officer Third Class, an entry-level enlisted member who is beginning to develop technical skills and knowledge. CGSN1 or SW1, Seaman First Class or Seaman with the Seafarer's Warfare Qualification, an entry-level enlisted member who performs general duties and receives basic training. CGSN2 or SW2, Seaman Second Class or Seaman with the Seafarer's Warfare Qualification, a slightly more experienced enlisted member who continues to develop their skills and knowledge. CGASN or SW, Apprentice Seaman or Apprentice Seaman with Seafarer's Warfare Qualification, the lowest rank in the Coast Guard, typically held individuals in basic training. CG Candidate Coast Guardsman, an individual who has been accepted into the Coast Guard and is awaiting the start of basic training. CG Draftee, historically, this This term refers to individuals who were conscripted or drafted in the Coast Guard during times of war or national emergency. However, the Coast Guard no longer utilized the draft system.
Dangerous Act of 2002. It is the policy of the state to safeguard the integrity of its territory and the well-being of citizenry, particularly the youth, from the harmful effects of dangerous drugs on their physical and mental well-being, and to defend the same against act or omissions detrimental to their development and preservation. Dangerous Drug Board. So it was mandated to be the policy making and agency as well as the national clearing house on the matters pertaining law enforcement and control of dangerous drugs, treatment and rehabilitation of drug dependence, drug abuse, prevention training and information research and statistic on the drug problem, and the training of personnel engaged in this kind of activities. Powers and function of PDEA. According to the RA 9165, or the Comprehensive Dangerous Drug Act of 2002, the following are the power and function of PDEA. So, for purposes of carrying out its duties and the powers, that PDEA shall have the following services, namely, administrative and human resources, compliance, financial management, internal affairs, intelligence and investigation, international cooperation, and foreign affairs.
Enabling law of PDEA. The PDEA, or the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, was created by virtue of Republic Act 9165, or the Comprehensive Dangerous Act of 2022, recognizing the need of further strengthen existing law governing Philippine drug law enforcement system. The former Philippine President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo signed the Republic Act No. 9165, or the Comprehensive Dangerous Drug Act of 2022, June 7, 2022, and it took effect on July 4, 2022. The RA 9165 defines more concrete courses of action for the national anti-drug campaign and imposes heavier penalties to the offenders. The PDEA is responsible for the efficient and effective law enforcement of all provision on any dangerous drug or precursor of essential chemical as provided in RA No. 9165. It is the lead of anti-drug law enforcement agency responsible for preventing, investigating, and combating dangerous drug within the Philippines.
The efforts of various law enforcement agencies mandated to implement the law lead anti-drug law enforcement agency responsible for preventing, investigating, and combating any dangerous drugs, controlled precursors, and essential chemicals within the Philippines. The agency is tasked with the enforcement of the penal and regulatory provisions of Republic Act No. 9165, otherwise known as the Comprehensive Dangerous Drug Act of 2002.
Vision. The Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, or PDEA, envisions that community in the country will be resistant to illegal drugs and capable of policing their ranks against this menace by 2030. Mission. Preventing, investigating, and combating any dangerous drugs, controlled precursors, and essential chemicals within the Philippines.
Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, the goals of it is in charge of effectively enforcing all laws relating to dangerous drugs, their precursors, and ordinary chemicals. So, the PDEA is a lawmaker who use illegal drugs to violate our law.
Matagumpay na nabuwag ng PDEA at PNP ang isang drug den sa anti-drug operation nito sa barangay Lower Manungol, Kidapawan City.
As you can see in the screen, we have the organizational structure of the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, or PDEA. PDEA is a national organization with an undersecretary as a director general and 2 assistant secretaries as deputy director generals. Here we have operation in the administration. It has a national staff service and is run in accordance with RA 9165. The PDEA Academy is in charge of managing and hiring, training, and of agents and staff, as well as the upkeep and support of the 17 regional offices. Here we can see how the organizational structure of PDEA is organized.
The following are the minimum qualifications for PDEA agent applicants. According to the PDEA website, ages must be 21 to 35, a male's height of 5'2", females must be 5 feet tall, with certificate of confirmation granted by NCIP, with a holder of baccalaureate degree, eligible for a second-level career service position that passed the CS professional or board exam, qualified by CSC, and subject to specific laws, with a high moral character and in good health, proficient in both writing and oral communication, and they're ready to work anywhere in the Philippines and also ready to go through intense training for 6 months.
LTO, or Land Transportation Office, a division of the Department of Transportation under the Philippine government. They are in charge of all land transportation in the country. We all know that LTO is where we get our driver's license, we will get our vehicle, and we renew all of our papers regarding with our transportation. And lastly, the LTO headquarters. There are a lot of land transportation office headquarters, but the main headquarters of the LTO or Land Transportation Office is in the East Avenue, Diliman, Quezon City in Luzon.
The Land Transportation Office was created on June 1980 by virtue of Act 2159 and later reorganized under PD 97 and PD 1713. The latest reorganization was by virtue of Executive Number 125, Series of 1987, creating the Land Transportation Office. The LTO is mandated to promote prompt, safe, and efficient land transportation services and conduct a nationwide motor vehicle inspection under Republic Act Number 4136. Vision. The LTO envisions a nation where land transportation is safe and efficient. Mission. The LTO is committed to providing excellent land transportation services in a manner that is accessible, efficient, and responsive to the needs of the public. Goals. To develop and implement policies, regulations, and standards aimed at enhancing road safety and ensuring effective and efficient land transportation systems. To manage and regulate the operation of motor vehicles and other modes of land transportation in the country. To promote and encourage the use of environmentally friendly and sustainable transportation. To implement a nationwide motor vehicle inspection system that will ensure compliance with safety and emission standards. The Land Transportation Office is responsible for registering and licensing motor vehicles, issuing driver's licenses, enforcing traffic rules and regulations, conducting vehicle inspections, providing driver's education and training, collecting and analyzing traffic data, and promoting road safety through advocacy efforts. Its mandate is to ensure the safe and efficient operation of motor vehicles on Philippine roads.
Nangako ang Land Transportation Office o LTO na makikipagtulungan sa Philippine National Police upang matukoy kung sino ang may-ari ng inabandonan sasakyan sa Pampanga.
The organizational structure of LTO. The Department of Transportation or the DOT oversees the LTO operations. The LTO administrative hierarchy is headed by an assistant secretary. So what is assistant secretary? Assistant secretary is who oversees, direct, and coordinates all staff divisions and field office activities, as well as develop ways to enhance public service delivery. And next, the executive director is working with the assistant secretary to develop policies and initiative. And the director of the Traffic Education Service or the TES and the Law Enforcement Service or LES is under the executive director. And what is the TES director? The Traffic Education Service is established, put into place, and maintain a system that assists persons for handling, hearing, and documenting cases, for keeping track of violation and offenders, and for applying from the right way. Or on the other hand, the LAS or the Law Enforcement Service is developed strategies and action plans for efficient execution of the land transport law and regulations. And next is the regional office run at the field level by the regional director, are in charge of managing and supervising all programs, initiative, and operation at the level. And lastly is the Law Enforcement Service and the Traffic Education Service are the LTO to primary service. The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board or the LEFRB, a sectoral body of the Department of Transportation or the DOTR, to regulate land-based public transportation and to protect the interests and welfare of commuters. So the all commuters will protect the LTFRB.
Enacting Law of PDEA. The PDEA or the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency was created by virtue of Republic Act 9165 or the Comprehensive Dangerous Act of 2022, recognizing the need of further strengthen existing law governing Philippine drug law enforcement system. The former Philippine President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo signed the Republic Act No. 9165 or the Comprehensive Dangerous Drug Act of 2022, June 7, 2022, and it took effect on July 4, 2022. The RA 9165 defines more concrete courses of action for the national anti-drug campaign and impose heavier penalties to the offenders.
Mandates of Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board. To achieve such goal, the agency promulgates, administers, enforces, and monitors compliance of policies, laws, and regulation of public land transportation services. Power and functions of the Land Transportation, Franchising, and Regulatory Board. The Land Transportation, Franchising, and Regulatory Board is responsible for regulating routes, capacities, and areas of operation for motorized vehicle in accordance with approved development plans and programs. They can issue, amend, revise, suspend, or cancel certificates of public convenience or permits and determine reasonable fares, rates, and charges. The Board can also issue preliminary or permanent injunctions, punish for contempt, issue subpoenas, conduct investigations, and impose fines for violations. The Board also reviews decisions made by the Regional Franchising and Regulatory Office, promulgates rules governing proceedings, and sets fees for service rendered. The Board also formulates, administers, and enforces rules on the land transportation, public utilities, standard of measurements, and requirements for operators to provide safety, protection, comfort, and convenience. The Board coordinates with other government agencies to improve public land transportation services and perform other functions as necessary or incidental to the objectives of the Executive Order.
The organizational structure of LTFRB or the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board. The LTFRB board shall be composed of a chairman and 2 members with the same rank, all of whom shall be appointed by the President of the Philippines. Upon recommendation, the Secretary of the Transportation and Communication, 1 member of the board shall be member of the bar and shall have engaged in the practice of law in the Philippines for less 5 years, another holder of a degree civil engineering, and the other holder of degree of economic, finance, or management, both with the same number of years experience and practice. Next in line is the Executive Director and support staff of the Board. The Board shall have Executive Director who shall also appointed by the President of the Philippines.
Nagpasaklolo na sa PNP Highway Patrol Group ang Land Transportation, Franchising and Regulatory Board o LTFRB. Kaugnay ng kampanya rito laban sa mga